Hello, hello, my beautiful pearls. I hope you are having a great Monday, an amazing day, and I hope you had a great weekend too. Today is going to be a very, very special day. It's a special one because I'm going to be talking about something that we all go through in our life. These states that we are like, we don't always go through them, but at any given point in time in our life, we might have gone through one of these situations. What I'm going to be talking about today is something that is major in anyone's life. It is something that we all experience, and is something that we have to also remember that we can overcome. I always talk about us being the owner of our life, us being the boss in our life. And this is not any different. I'm going to be talking about those emotions that we go through and those feelings that we go through in our life. But I want you to remember that no matter what we go through, or no matter how strong these feelings are, we as human beings have the capacity to overcome anything that we set our mind to overcome. Remember, you are that boss. You are the one who makes the decisions. You are the decision maker. And if you choose to take those decisions and to move in any specific direction, if you choose to do so, you will succeed because this is where your brain will take you. This is where all your actions will take you because of your own decision making process and because you decided, you made that choice, and that's where you will take yourself. So keeping that in mind, when we are talking about these emotions today, I want you to remember that no matter where you are in that spectrum, you can get out of it. So without further ado, today we're going to be talking about fear. And fear is such a broad topic because there are so many fears that we go through in our lives. Today, I'm going to be focusing on only 6 fears. I'm not going to be talking on all about all the fears that we go through, only those 6, and maybe I will keep some more fears for another live, and I will share some information about those fears later on. But today, let's focus on those very specific fears that I want to talk about. The first fear I want to talk about is the fear of failure. Now, before I venture into explaining a little bit about the fear of failure, let me tell you a little bit of a story about me. I have always been that child who would be afraid, who would be sitting on the sides, not getting involved, not showing myself, not expressing myself, because I had always that fear of what if I don't succeed? What if I fail? What if I do things wrong? What will happen? You know, what we do in our lives is we give success so many positives. We give success such an importance that we actually make failure like the worst thing that could ever happen. But is it? Is failure the worst thing that could ever happen? Throughout my life, as I evolved and as I became the person that I am today, I actually learned that failure is the best teacher ever. You know, if we don't fail, this is how I look at it. If we don't fail, we don't learn. If you don't fall, you don't learn. And I'll give you an example. Like if your child is learning how to walk and they fall, what are you going to do? Are you going to keep them on the side and tell them, you know what, no, don't go, you're not going to walk, and if you fall again you will fail, then sit and don't walk, and they will never learn how to walk? Is this how you deal with their failure when they walk and they fall? No, it's actually the other way around. You give them a push, you give them a little bit of a positive feedback, and you hold their hand. You hold their hand instead of making them become afraid or making failure their block, or that stone that they can never cross, or that wall that they can never break. So failure for me is a lesson. It's the teacher, it's the best school that you can ever go to because it will teach you how to know what your mistakes are. And knowing your mistakes means that you can actually figure them out. You can figure out what went wrong and make it better, and understand how you can make things better. So when you go through failure, instead of being afraid of it, make it your teacher. Embrace it. Learn from it. And a lot of times what happens is failing. It means that it's like we are giving credit to the people who knew that we're not going to be able to do it. So it's like, yes, they are right. So if we fail, we are afraid to fail, because it's like giving credit to those people who think that we're not going to make it. And if we fail, it's like in our brain, we are disappointing the people who thought that we will make it. So it's like we put these two criteria in front of us, and we think that, what if I fail? Oh my God. And then that fear of failure makes us stuck. So we don't do things, we don't take those steps in order to actually succeed. So if we don't fail, we don't succeed. And if we are afraid of failure, it means we're not going to do anything. So how do you expect to succeed, for example, if you don't do anything, if you don't go through hurdles in your life, if you don't actually take decisions and make things happen for you, even if you're going to fail, how do you expect to succeed? Just keep that thought in your mind. And by the way, the fear of failure and the fear of success, they go hand in hand, they go together. Right? I'm going to talk about the fear of success maybe in another episode, but today I'm focusing on the fear of failure. But they do go hand in hand. So that's the first fear I want to talk about. The second fear I want to talk about is the fear of rejection. Let's look at our life, your life, my life, everyone's life. How many times did we hear the word no? How many times throughout your life do you go through rejection? Like, rejection is an inevitable thing. It will happen whether we like it or not. Today, tomorrow, any day. It might have happened already. So rejection is something that's going to always happen. We will go through it whether we like it or not. So imagine that something that we will be going through all the time, that we might go through all the time, and we are just worried that this is going to happen to us. And what is the fear of rejection? Basically, it's the fear of hearing the word no, or fear of being rejected by others, by jobs, by in relationships, by people, you know. So when we have that fear, we are basically worried about disappointing people, or about not being able to fit. So we are always afraid that people will say no to us. And when we are always afraid that people will say no to us, we cannot be who we are. We stop being ourselves, and we start building that shield, or maybe even changing who we are, just so that we can be around people, or so that we don't disappoint, or so that we don't hear the word no. But remember, throughout your life, how many times did you hear the word no? How many times were you told that, for example, no for a job? Like at an interview, you were not picked as a candidate. So no is something inevitable. You will get it. You will receive it during your lifetime. Are you going to make it that block? Are you going to make it that stress? Or are you going to go past it? Or are you going to go through it and just move past it and go? You know? So that's the fear of what? That's the fear of rejection. You know how many people, how many famous people that I'm sure you know, the whole world knows about these people, how many times they were rejected and how much rejection built so much in their lives and so much in their careers that now, like for them, rejection was the main reason or the main catalyst that brought them to their current life, to their current state in life. I'll give you an example for like J.K. Rowling's, you know, J.K. Rowling's, the author of Harry Potter. You know how many times her script or her manuscript was rejected by how many publishing houses? 12. So can you imagine if she had surrendered to the fear of rejection, you wouldn't have read Harry Potter. You wouldn't have seen Harry Potter, the movie. Harry Potter wouldn't have existed. So can you imagine her persistence, see, is what led us to have this book and to be able to read this book. And how successful is she? So if she had put the fear of rejection as her standard or her guide, she wouldn't be where she is today. Another one, big one, the KFC founder, the founder of KFC, that recipe. He went, I think, to 9 different restaurants with that recipe, and nobody would take that recipe from him. He had so many no's that he couldn't count. And then eventually, look where he is today, because he wouldn't take no for an answer. He wouldn't take no for an answer. And look at that huge chain all over the world just because the guy wouldn't take no for an answer. So that's about the fear of rejection. The third fear I want to talk about today is the fear of change. And also kind of remember all our fears, if especially those 6 that I'm talking about today, they kind of intertwine. They go hand in hand somehow. They walk together on that path. And fear of change is one of them. Fear of change is basically the main cause of being afraid of change is because we don't know what's out there. It's like the fear of the unknown. We don't know, so we are afraid. But I want you to remember one thing. There's one constant in life, and that is change. Change will always be happening. It will always be there. It will never change. So change is the only constant in life. Can you imagine being afraid of that constant? It's like you're always going to be afraid instead of embracing change, especially now in our lifetime. Change is so rapid and it's happening like overnight. We sleep, we wake up, there's something new, right? So imagine yourself always being worried, always being afraid of that change. How much of your life you will be wasting just being afraid of change? And it will not stop. This is the one thing that will not stop. And being afraid of change is also like you want to stay in your comfort zone. You don't want to go out of your comfort zone because this is where you feel comfortable. And this will lead you to actually take so many wrong decisions for your own sake. Like, for example, if your comfort zone is being in a toxic relationship and you cannot handle that change of being single or of dating again, then you decide, you put yourself in that toxic relationship just because you are afraid of change. How is that good for you? Right? Ask yourself these questions. Challenge yourself. I always challenge myself. I always ask myself, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of it? Can I handle the other possibility? Is there another possibility? Of course, there is another possibility. Can I handle it? Of course, I can handle it. So remember to always ask yourself these questions if you are going through those fears. I'm explaining those fears so that you can know if you have them or not. And if you have them, I want to remind you that it is all in your hands. You can get rid of those fears. You can become more powerful and you can become more decisive. It only takes a decision, usually. And then you can move past it. So that's about the fear of change. The fourth fear I want to talk about is the fear of not being good enough. And this is a huge one, a huge one. Like almost 99.99% of people have that fear. The fear of not being good enough, the fear of not, you know, whenever we, like people who have this fear, even when they succeed, they will never give credit to their own capabilities. They will never give credit to themselves for succeeding because they don't think they're good enough. They have that fear of not being good enough. And that fear, most of the time, generates from our childhood, by the way. It starts with us at a very, very young age, just because maybe we were told things when we were kids that, you know, you're not good enough, or you're not strong enough to climb that tree, or you're not strong enough to fight with your brother, like if you're a girl, or you're not fit enough to do that sport or that kind of sport when you are a kid. So you start developing that idea or that fear of not being good enough, of not being able to please others, of not being able to be, you know, looked at with those empathetic or sympathetic eyes, you know, or letting people love you. So you are always worried, like, am I good enough for this? Am I good enough? Are people going to like me? Are people going to love me? So that's the fear of not being good enough. And many of us have it. I know I had it. I had it, and I had to work so hard to overcoming that fear, to realizing that no, I'm good enough, and I'm even better than good enough. I'm like, wow, you know, this is how I want you to feel about you. This is how I want everyone to feel about themselves, because it's true. You know, perfection doesn't exist. You are perfect the way you are. That's perfection. Every single one of us is perfect the way they are. So remember that. Okay, keep that in your mind. So that's the fear of not being good enough. And remember, by the way, at the end, well, not at the end, the second part of this live, I'm going to actually give you some tips on how to release those fears and how to remove them, okay, by yourselves, before maybe needing to see someone or talk to someone special, a specialist, or even someone who works with the energy like me. So the fourth fear of not being good enough is that. Now we move to the fifth fear, which is the fear of loneliness. The fear of loneliness it also kind of puts us in a situation where we compromise on our standards just so that we are not alone. So we agree to be in that same toxic relationship that people who are afraid of change stay in, because also we are afraid of being alone. We are afraid of loneliness. So the fear of loneliness will lead us to take decisions in our lives that will actually harm us, like staying in that toxic relationship, or like having people in our lives, like friends even, who are completely different than us, completely not on the same wavelength, just because we are afraid of loneliness. So that's also a very common fear, the fear of loneliness. And it became even worse, or it became even more common when the pandemic started. So a lot of people started feeling lonely and they didn't know what to do. And some people actually knew what to do and used that fear to their advantage and used that loneliness. I'm not going to say that fear, but they used that loneliness to their advantage. And they opened up because they made a good use of their loneliness and they used it for their own good. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give you, when I give you the tips, you will know exactly what I mean, because I did that, by the way. When during Corona, I was all alone. Okay, I have my 2 cats and my dog, yes, but I didn't have any human interaction. I could have used Zoom. I did, but not too much, I actually decided that this is the best time for me to reflect. This is the best time for me to go back to who I am, to what I'm doing, to the things that I aspire for, to my dreams. And I kind of assessed my whole life during that period when we were put in isolation, when we were not able to go out, when we were not able to see other people or mingle with other people. That time for me probably was the most powerful time I spent with myself. I learned so much about who I was. I like, because I never sat with myself and asked myself questions about me or about where I am, or about where I want to be, because I was just moving with in my life. I was just moving with life. I was going with the flow. I never had that epiphany of, I want to ask myself those questions. Why am I here? What am I doing here? I started asking, like, I used to ask those questions before, then I stopped, then I started asking them again. And I want to know why. I wanted to know why I'm here. I wanted to know what I was doing, why I was doing the things that I was doing. So I used that time to know all of this, to reflect, to sit with myself, to understand who I was. And oh my God, that was probably the best time I had in my life figuring out me. So if you are going through that fear of loneliness, and this is one of the tips I'm going to give you later, is reflect, sit with yourself, sit with your thoughts, ask yourself the big questions and find the answers. And when I give you the tips, I'm going to tell you what else you can do to overcome that fear of loneliness. But trust me, when you feel alone, instead of being afraid, think of how you can use this time for you. Put yourself at the top of the list and go from there. So that's the fear of loneliness. And the last fear I want to talk about today, from the perspective of talking about the fear, is the fear of being judged. And again, 99.99% of people would have that fear at any given point in time, but not letting it take control of your time is the like the trick here, right? You go through it. People go through that fear of being judged because they are, people want to be liked. We all want to be liked. We all want to be praised, or we all want to be looked at with admiration. Why? This is where fear of being judged starts, because we all want, or not all, but we want kind of this validation from others. We want to be liked, we want to be looked at in a special, nice way. And the more we think this way, the more we are afraid of what people think about us. And giving them credit even to how they think about us is beyond my understanding. Because for me, I am who I am, and I am proud of who I am. And I really, really try to tell everyone to be that way, to appreciate who they are and like themselves for who they are. And remember, you are perfect the way you are. So waiting for someone else's validation of who you are will put you in that place of always being afraid of what others will think or what others will say if I do that, or if I act this way, or if I don't succeed, or if I live alone, or if I cannot handle change, or if I can handle change, or if I am successful. The tricks that I'm going to give you about getting out of that fear of being judged are going to be so amazing. You will love them. So remember, don't ever think, what is wrong with me? Because you're always thinking of being judged from others. There's nothing wrong with you. Again, you're perfect the way you are. Just don't wait for anyone to tell you that you are worth something. Don't wait for anyone to give you that validation. So, to recap, we talked about the fear of failure, the fear of rejection, the fear of change, the fear of not being good enough, the fear of failure, the fear of loneliness, and the fear of being judged. And if you've noticed, all these fears at one place or another, they kind of go hand in hand. They go together. So most of the time, if someone has the fear of failure, they would also probably have a fear of being judged, or a fear of change, or a fear of being alone or not being good enough. So that's why they kind of fail and they don't go that extra mile to do things for themselves. So they all come like in one package, I would say. So these are the fears. Now, the one thing I want you to always remember, and I started with it, I'm going to say it now, I'm going to probably end with it. You are the boss of your life. You are the driver in that train, in that bus, in that car, whatever you want to call it, but you are the driver. You are the one who is calling the shots. Always remember that. And the minute you remember that and you put yourself in that zone, you will know that you are invincible. Nothing can stop you. And you can work anything that faces you out. You can work it out. You can find a way. Marie Forleo, she says, she has a book. It's an amazing book, and I would highly recommend that you read it. It's an amazing book. It says, the title of the book is Everything is Figure Outable. How cool is that? So you can figure anything out because you have that capacity, because you have that brain, and because you are the boss. Just the minute you remember you are the boss, you can do anything. That it's like when there's a will, there's a way. Exactly that, right? And remember, in all those fears, there's also one common thing that is kind of guiding those fears, and this is our ego. Why? Because our ego is like the main job of our ego is to protect us. And fears are basically something that we are like that is protecting us, right? So our ego is in control when we let those fears be in control. And there is a very, very simple way of getting out of so many of those fears. And I would say all of them. At one point, if you just recognize those fears and you talk to your ego, you're halfway there. So basically, when you get that fear of failure and you start drawing the worst case scenarios ever because you are afraid. So when you have those thoughts and those worst case scenarios, I want you to practice something. Practice talking to your ego. Tell your ego, I hear you. Thank you. I love you. I know you're trying to protect me, but this time I want you to trust me. I want you to trust me and I want you to help me. Help me by trusting me, by being next to me, so that I can go through this. And I know what I'm doing. Let me do it. It might sound weird that you would be talking to your ego, but try to practice that. Try to tell your thoughts to relax. You've got this. You've got this. You can do it. And thank them, recognize them, thank them, and appreciate that they are trying to help, that they are trying to protect you. But tell them that you want to go through that adventure, that you want to learn, that you want to put yourself in a position where you are actually learning a lot from whatever you go through, be it failure, be it change, be it loneliness, be it feeling not good enough, be it being judged by others, you know, being rejected, you know. You want to go through this so that you can learn, so that you can rise in anything that you want to do, so that you can rise in your own, I call it championship. Like you become the champion by getting over those fears and getting over that limitation that you create for yourself in your mind. You, and by you here, I mean your ego, because it's trying to protect you. Now I'm going to give you some hints on how you can actually get out of many of those fears, starting with the fear of failure. So when you have the fear of failure, basically you are afraid to fail, right? So what you would want to do is you would want to put like in front of you all the possible outcomes of anything that you are doing, right? Put all the possible outcomes, all the potential outcomes that are there, and analyze them. But analyze them through positive thinking. Don't analyze them by putting hurdles or putting blocks in the way. Analyze them positively. Learn the positive things about those outcomes. And also learn to think positively. That's something that is very important that will help you overcome that fear of failure. And then look at the worst case scenario. And let's say the worst case scenario happens. Have a plan B. So when you have a plan B, your fear will diminish because you know that if the worst thing happens, and usually it doesn't, by the way, like if you put the worst case scenario, you will not get to the worst case scenario. But let's say, God forbid, it happens. Having a plan B is such an important thing. Why? Because you feel like you have this cushion that you can fall on. and it will build that confidence in you. You will feel that you can do this. You will become more confident. You will become more resilient. So this is how you can actually control that fear of failure. And remember, always talk to your ego. Tell your ego, thank you for, trying to protect me. And I love you for doing that, but I want you to trust me and let me go through that experience. I want to learn. Always remember, failure is your teaching. It is what is going to teach you where you did wrong things and how you can fix them and how you can move forward, how you can succeed, how you can become the best version of who you are already. You are perfect the way you are. The second fear, which is the fear of rejection. Here are some tips as to remember, okay, if you ever have that fear. Remember, first of all, remember that it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. Not today, maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after, but we will always be in situations where we might have no as an answer. And it's very normal, right? And sometimes it's for the simplest things, but when we have that fear, it becomes like the simplest thing becomes something very big to us. So what I want you to know and what I want you to do is to always acknowledge that fear, and sit with it and appreciate it, like I said, and thank it for being there, because it is there because it's trying to protect you. And also remember that maybe that no is actually an opportunity for you for a better thing, for a better tomorrow, for a better opportunity. So always look at the positives in any rejection that you get. Maybe it's a better opportunity for you. So if I was always received with a yes, I might have not succeeded, or I might have not become the person that I am today. If everything that I've been through in my life, all the answers I got were yes. Nobody had yes throughout their whole lives, all their lives. We all had to have a no at one given point in time. So it's going to be also a constant. It's like change. No and change kind of come together. They're always constant as well. Not like no is not constant, like we're not always going to have a no, but we are bound to have a no at any given point in time in our lives. Always remember also that you are worth a lot. Remember who you are. Remember how worthy you are, so that you are not worried about being rejected. And if you are rejected, you're rejected for a reason. Something better will come out of it, of that rejection. Remember, Mr. KFC founder, right? I don't know his name. I should Google his name. So he was rejected so many times, and at the end, the best opportunity came to him because he was rejected so many times, and look where he is now, right? Another thing is, for all the fears, not just this one, for all the fears, you want to always try to find out, why is this fear happening? Like, what is the root of this fear? And I want to talk to you about this separately because it applies to all of them, okay? And there's a way to understand why you have those fears. There are so many ways, but I'm going to give you a couple, but there are so many ways that you can dive deeper and try to understand where this fear came from. And always knowing the origin of any fear will help us overcome that fear. Okay, especially because remember, those fears are not fears that we are born with. The only two that we are born with are the fear of height, or the fear of falling, actually, which equals the fear of height, and the fear of loud noises. These are the only two fears two fears that we are born with. Everything else, all the fears that we have, and there are so many. I mean, today we're talking only about 6, but there are so many fears that we go through in our lives. They are all acquired. None of these fears is innate. All of them are acquired. So basically, learn where your fear started. And when you know where it started, you can work on that and release that fear. Also, when you are like, there are your surrounding, the people that live around you, the people that you make your friends, okay, the people that you surround yourself with are very, very, very important in every single aspect of your life. And fear is one of those aspects. So all those fears, I would say all those fears, if you have the right surrounding, like network around you, network of friends, network of people, you will be out of that fear by just having that network. It is that helpful to surround yourself with the people who are right for you, the people who will praise you, the people who will make you feel who you truly are, your worth, because you are worthy. You are worthy. You are abundant. You are divine. Always remember that. No matter what you go through in your life, you are that divine creature. Remember, we were all born as an image of God, right? So how can we not be divine? How can we not be abundant? How can we not be perfect the way we are? So surrounding yourself with the right people works for all the fears, by the way. So it's a tip for to overcome all the fears, not just the fear of loneliness or the fear of change or the fear of not being good enough or loneliness or being judged. Because actually, for example, if you are surrounded with the right people, no one will judge you, right? Because they are the right people. How can they judge you? They are the people who will praise you. They are the people who will make you feel always so good about you. We're going to talk about that. Anyway, now, fear of change. How to get over the fear of change. Number one, the fear of change, remember, is because we are afraid of change because we don't know. It's the unknown. What's going to happen? Where am I going? What is it all about? So one of the tips that I'm going to give you is, for example, do your research. Make it a point that you understand everything that you want to understand, everything that you need to understand about the change that you are exposed to. And organize yourself. Accept that the change is going to happen. Acceptance is always very important. Embrace it instead of defying it. Welcome it, embrace it. It's happening with or without you. So get on board. It's only good for you if you are on board, because if you're going to defy it, you're going to be doing that alone. Believe me, you're going to be doing that alone. And when you are faced with change, something very, very important that you can do and very easy to do actually is to chunk it out, right? Like take it step by step, step by step. You don't have to go through the change like all together at the very, like at the same time instantly. Take it step by step. The change will happen. Your comfort zone needs to be left alone. You want to go out there. You want to embrace that change. You want to embrace that development, because today the change that the whole world is going through, and it's very rapid and it's very fast and it's moving, you want to be on that train. You don't want to be left alone. You don't want to be left behind, because if you are left behind, then you will develop that fear of loneliness, remember? Yeah. See how they are all joined together one way or another. So, and also something very, very important, and again, I think it's also important in so many different fears, not just the fear of change, is to reward yourself. Like for the very simplest change that you accept or that you are willing to go with or that you are happy to embrace, celebrate yourself. Celebrate that teeny weeny success that you allowed yourself to go through. And the more you celebrate, because celebration brings happiness, and it brings those what do they call them, enzymes, not sure, but celebration, it brings those like kind of when you are afraid you have high adrenaline, it's the opposite. So it brings that excitement and that happiness, and the more you do it, the happier you are, the more joyful you are. So instead of being afraid of change, embrace it and celebrate that embracement that you have just done, that success that you have gone through by embracing the change. So this is for change, and also always repeating that, so that embracement, that acceptance, and then celebrating that acceptance and repeating that over and over again. Where is that fear? It doesn't exist anymore. It's gone, right? And surround yourself with the right type of people, not the people who are afraid of change, the people who are actually voting for change and going through change and celebrating it all the time. So that's for the fear of change. For the fear of not being good enough, please, 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 please stop comparing yourself to anyone or anything out there. Don't compare. No comparison. Don't leave room for that comparison, because the minute you want to compare, you start thinking that you're not good enough because someone else is better than you or someone else has achieved more than you. So comparing is going to make you feel worse about yourself. So no comparison. You are who you are, and you are amazing the way you are. Don't compare, and don't go for perfection, because perfection in general, as a term, perfection does not exist. You are perfect already. This is perfection. The way you are is perfect. The way I am is perfect for me. The way you are is perfect for you. The way everyone is perfect for them. Think about it this way, and don't look for that perfection, that I want everything to be perfect and I want everyone to be perfect in my life, because that's not going to happen. We all know. So don't go there. And by not going there, you are not putting yourself in a state where you think you're not good enough. And don't put high expectations for yourself. Just expect the normal things. And if you want to put high expectations, you want to know that if I put high expectations, I'm going to have the strength and I'm going to have the will to achieve those expectations because I am good enough. So being decisive, taking a decision, and admitting to yourself that if I'm going to put high expectations for me, I'm going to achieve them, instead of putting high expectations and starting to feel, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It's impossible. It's way beyond my power, or my power basically is way beyond what I can do. So don't put those high expectations. And then if ever you need help, ask for it. There's no shame in that. There's nothing wrong if I don't know about something, or if I don't know how to do something. There's nothing wrong. There's no shame in me asking for help. Like, let's say I'm not a guru in, I don't know, advertising, and I need to advertise something. I'm not going to go do it myself and put so many high expectations on myself and not being able to deliver for me. Why would I do that? I would just go and ask for help. And that help will put me in a situation where I'm feeling good about myself because I managed to actually ask for help. And I managed to create what I want to create for myself because I asked for help instead of putting myself down by not knowing how to do things and not, and hiring the expectations I have from me. Right? And then remember, always remember that you want to know what happiness is for you. You want to identify the things that make you happy. You want to know what they are. And instead of thinking that you're not good enough, you want to experience those, experience that happiness, experience that, what makes you happy, what it is that is yours, instead of comparing yourself to others or following a trend, especially these days, because trends are like so many. And you see a lot of people wanting to become that person or that person, or feeling like that person or looking like that person. And I'm talking about, like, if you follow social media and you just look at those ideal people that are always put in front of us on social media, and they make you or me or anyone feel so bad about ourselves because we are just comparing. So don't compare and don't follow a trend. Find who you really are. Find what makes you happy and follow that. Don't follow a trend and don't compare. It will never get you anywhere except feeling not good enough, right? So, and again, remember to celebrate. Always celebrate. The small wins, the big wins, celebrate all the time. Celebration is such a positive vibe that will make everything feel better, everything feel smoother. And when you repeat that action, the more you repeat it, it's like affirmations. By the way, affirmations are amazing. You can use them anywhere, and they are really amazing because they're kind of talking to your ego as well and telling your ego, you are this way. I am this way. I am good enough. I am the best version of me. I am able to do anything I set my mind to do. I'm able to succeed. I am successful. I am succeeding. See, these affirmations, the more you say them and the more you think them, the more real they are. And it's amazing. Just try it. Just try it. Don't take my word for it. Try it. Use affirmations every day, like repeat them in your mind or out loud. 21, it takes 21 days for your subconscious mind to know that this something is like embedded in the subconscious mind. So if you want, repeat them 21 times for 21 days. Every time, repeat them 21 times in your mind or say them out loud, and then do that same thing for 21 days or 30 days, or repeat them 30 times for 30 days, 3 times a day. Why not? While you are, I don't know, cooking or brushing your teeth or putting some makeup on or wearing your clothes. Do it. You won't lose anything. Oh, you will gain a lot though. Trust me, I've done it, I've tried it, and it works like magic. It's amazing. So that's for not being good enough. Now, how to overcome that fear of being alone or that fear of loneliness. As I mentioned earlier, instead of looking at loneliness as a fear, embrace it and actually consider it your quality time with you. This is the time that you get to sit with yourself, that you get to assess your life, that you get to assess everything that you've gone through, all the things that you are going through right now, all the decisions that you've made so far, all the mistakes that you've made so far, all the successes that you've had so far, and sit with that and assess that and go through all of these details instead of taking your loneliness as a place where you would be afraid, or as instead of thinking of loneliness from a fear's perspective. Embrace it and use it to your benefit. So that's a tip. Instead of being afraid, make it your quality time with you. Also, find joy in doing things that you don't usually do when you are like around people. I don't know, dance, do something artistic. Like when I was like when the pandemic started and we were in isolation, I started to I didn't do drawing. I actually had some arabesques drawings, and I was coloring them with different colors. This is how I was enjoying my time. I kind of like went to my back to my childhood, and I was doing the things that brought me joy when I was a kid. So use that time of being alone to figure in finding those joyful things that you don't do anymore because you're not a kid anymore, and do them and enjoy them and be happy, instead of thinking of loneliness from fear, or coming coming to loneliness from fear. And then use meditation, use relaxation techniques like meditation, like breath work, so instead of fearing to be alone, meditate. Breath work, it relaxes you instead of feeling anxiety when you have any kind of anxiousness or any kind of anxiety. Breath work is just, it works like magic. You just do it and then you're relaxed, so that fear stops. And then again, use your time wisely when you are alone. Use it for your own benefit. The last thing I want to talk about, or not the last thing I want to talk about, but the last fear I'm going to give you tips on how to overcome, is the fear of being judged. Like I said earlier, we always want to be, liked by others. But first of all, why do we want to be liked by others? Because we criticize ourselves all the time. So if we criticize ourselves all the time, how do we expect others not to criticize us or not to judge us? So number one, stop criticizing yourself. Because the more you criticize yourself, the more you are giving chances for other people to judge you. So stop doing that. Stop coming from your own brain with criticism, so that you don't give others that opportunity. Yeah. And then trust in your own capabilities. You can do things. You are successful. Trust that. Build that confidence. And when you build that confidence, even if people judge you, and sometimes people will, you wouldn't care, because you are so confident about your own capabilities. You know what you can do. You know how good you are. And you know that you can succeed, and you know that you can make things happen for you. So in that case, building that confidence, trusting your capabilities, means that even if anyone judges you, so what? You don't care, because you know you're succeeding, you're doing things right. And then be happy. It's very difficult for people to judge someone who's always happy. If you're happy, they kind of like don't have a reason to judge you. It's very difficult for them to find like, where is it that that reason where I can judge that person. It's not there because that person is always happy. So be happy. Show that happiness. And no one can judge you. They won't be able to. And then don't assume, sometimes people, like, you assume that they are judging you, but it's sometimes not a judgment. It's more like of a lack of an understanding of what you are doing or what you are going through, or just a lack of understanding of your situation. It's not a judgment. So maybe realize that it's not a judgment and explain things to them, make it clearer to them, so that this does not sound to you in your brain like a judgment. Remember that it might be a lack of understanding from their side. So that's how looking at judgment this way will make you get out of that fear of being judged. And please, by all means, stop looking for people's approval or validation. Why do you need it? We go back to the same vicious, like that same circle of needing that validation means that you think you're not good enough. You have a fear of not being good enough. You have a fear of judgment. So if we do all of this and stop looking for validation from people, or stop wanting their approval, all of this will stop. All of those fears will stop. We won't care anymore, because we know what we are worth. We know our worthiness, our own worthiness, our own capabilities. And trusting that is the best way for us to get out of those fears. Trusting that power that we have. The last thing that works for all of those, remember, surrounding yourself with people who are like you, who think like you, who are on the same wavelength, who are there to support you. The people, like, instead of, if you are lonely, instead of keeping yourself in a toxic relationship just so that you are not alone, get out of that toxic relationship and look for people who will raise you. Look for people who will like uplift you instead of putting you down, instead of being toxic for you in your life. Instead of accepting that friend who does not even match your standards just so that you are not alone, no, look for another friend who will match your standards or even have higher standards than yours. Then that person can bring you to them, instead of you falling down to that level that is lower than your own standards just because you are afraid of being alone. So always surrounding yourself with the right kind of people, the right kind of friends, the right kind of peers, even family members. I would dare to even go there. If you have family members around you that are toxic to you, I would not let them be in my life. It's that simple. Because you want to live your life from a positive space, from a relaxed space, from a place where you can make things happen for you, a place where you can succeed, a place where you can be on a higher vibration, rather than lowering your vibrations to match the vibrations of others who are around you, that are not any good to you, and linger in that fear of being not good enough, or being rejected, or being judged, or being lonely, or failing, or changing, for God's sake. Oh no. Instead of being in that position, be in a position where you allow, or you not allow, you master You master taking those decisions, master your brain, you master telling your ego that you are in control. You master thanking your ego and acknowledging that your ego is there to protect you and thanking your ego for that. And yet telling your ego that it's okay. I know. Thank you so much. But be with me, stay by my side, and we're going to go through this together. I want to, and you're coming with me, by the way. You're not staying here. You're coming with me. You are in control. Remember, this is a ship and you are the captain of this ship. Simple. That body, that life is your ship and you are that captain. So whatever decisions you take, you're going to be the one who is actually also bearing the consequences of your decisions. So if you decide to surrender to your fears, you're going to have to bear the consequences of that, right? You will have to handle the results of putting yourself in that situation. Now, if you put yourself in a situation of love, of acceptance, of trusting your capabilities and you're trusting your own gut and trusting that you are good enough, that you are divine, that you are amazing, that you are perfect the way that you are. Trusting that will put you in a completely different state of mind, on a completely higher vibration. You will be leading your life in the right direction, in the positive direction. And one thing I want to tell you, and I want you to always remember, living in the past is never going to be good for anyone, like you or me. If I live in my past, it's not right. It's like me lingering there, not being able to succeed, not being able to develop, not being able to move one single step forward. Why would anyone choose to live in their past? The past is there because it's our experience, it's our lessons, it's our teachings, it's our learnings, it's our falls and our, standing back up. This is what the past is. We learn from the past. Living in the past is never good for you, not good for anyone. Living in the future is going to make you feel worried and afraid. Why? Because the future is unknown to you. So remember one thing that is very, very, very important. Be present. The only time that you have is now. Remember, the only time that you have is now. And think, how do you want to spend this time? Do you want to spend this time in fear? Do you want to spend this time in being closed up? Or do you want to spend this time in happiness, in joy, in love, in success? So when you think of how you want to spend your present time, because this is the only time that you've got, the now, when you decide that you want to spend your now in a higher vibration. I always say higher vibration because when you are on a higher vibration, everything is right. Everything is right for you. And always remember that what is right for you doesn't necessarily have to be right for anyone else. And when you think from that perspective, by the way, you really, really would not care if people judge you because you know that what you are going through is right for you. And the way you are is right for you. So if people judge you or not, it doesn't matter, because you know who you are, you know what you are, you know why you're here, you know what you're doing here, and you are doing it now, not in the past and not in the unknown future, because you don't know. I like to think of fear in a different way. I like to call it something else. I came up with this. Fear is actually finding empowerment and rising. Finding empowerment and rising. So this is how I define fear. This is how I look at fear. Instead of letting fear put me down, instead of letting fear control me, I find empowerment in that fear and I rise. And with that, I'm gonna say ciao ciao. But before I do that, remember, if you have any questions, if you find that this topic has any like triggered things in your mind and you want to talk more about it and you want to know more about it, write. Let's see, what do you want to write? Overcome. Okay? Or let's write rise in the comments below the video. So if you feel like you want to know more, if you want me to talk to you personally and discuss more about fears or about anything else, write rise in the comments below and I will reach out to you. And with that, I'm going to tell you, find empowerment and rise, and don't let fear control you. Be the boss. Ciao, ciao.